the Team Performance Podcast with Spencer Horn and Christian Napier. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Team Performance Winning Ways for Uncertain Times podcast. I'm Christian Napier, and I'm joined, as always, by Spencer Horn. But Spencer, you look like you're in a different place. You either sold your house or you're on the road.
No, I did not sell my house. Yes, I am on the road. I'm in St. George, Utah. I'm actually right in between you and Salt Lake and our guest, which we'll talk about here in a second, in Las Vegas. It is it's beautiful down here, and I'm with my wife and 4 grandchildren in 2 hotel rooms for 8 days. So it is we're having a good time, and it's keeping my wife and I very occupied. So you might hear some background noises every once in a while. You never know what will happen.
Well, that's all good, all right. I mean, we're not NBC here. I'm not Bob Costas, and so
you take Bob Costas. you did bring that talent up.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I'm not Al Michaels, and you're not Chris Collinsworth. So, yeah, we're just 2 humble guys doing their thing. And so if kids or dogs or whatever they run into frame or they start barking in the background, that's totally
or bonking, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So it sounds like you're down there in St. George for pleasure and not for business then.
Yeah, it is for us. That is absolutely pleasure to watch our grandchildren, and their parents are in Hawaii having a nice little earned break, and they just want to relax. You know, it's hard work raising a family, as you know, but with all this lockdown, doing homeschool, taking care of 4 children from ages 11 to less than 2 years old. And husband has started a new business, actually purchased a business in Massachusetts, and it's quite a daunting task. They are so busy, so they're getting a much earned break.
Well, yes, definitely earned, but I hear Hawaii is not the easiest place to get into.
No, you have to go through you really jump through a few hoops to be able to get there, and they did everything they needed to do, and they're enjoying themselves now.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that, Spencer. It sounds like a lot of fun. I hope you have fun with your grandchildren down there in St. George, and you don't break too many things in the hotel room.
Yeah, no, it's not the Joe Walsh lifestyle that we have here. So
very good.
You understand the reference.
Our 70s rockers, hanging out and trashing hotel rooms. Yeah, that's probably the right age for us, Spencer. Well,
right.
Let's get on to talking with our guest, because I'm so excited to hear about our guest that you've invited here today, Spencer. Why don't you tell us a little bit about him?
Absolutely. So excited to introduce our guest today, Dr. Jeffrey Magee, who I met through the speaking world, and we'll talk just a little bit about that before we get started. But Dr. Magee is really someone that I aspired to be like. He is really well known in the leadership and the sales world. He is called one of today's leading leadership and marketing strategists, and he works with C-suite professionals, business leaders, military generals, and this CEO to CEO peer groups across America. And I know that that's limiting you, Dr. Magee, because you have an international reach as well. But he's someone who's an author. He's authored 20 books and titles such as Talentification. Did I pronounce that right?
You did it good.
Okay, great. Your Trajectory Code, the Sales Training Handbook, the Managerial Bible, Sales Mastery, Sales Training, and many more that I'm not listing here. He is a certified speaking professional with the National Speakers Association. He is past presidents of multiple National Speakers Association chapters around the country. He is also a certified trainer, coach, and his credentials are highly sought after for Fortune 100 companies. If you go on his website, drjeffreymagee.com, I mean, you'll see testimonials from Fortune 100 companies like Disney and others. And so I feel very fortunate to have him on our show today. And Dr. Magee, you and I met, about 3 years ago, maybe a little bit more?
About 3 to 4 years ago here in Las Vegas. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So through the National Speakers Association chapter Las Vegas, and I think we had kind of a curious meeting because you had heard that I used to work for a company that you had been brought in to help.
Yes, we'll stop right there.
But we had a great conversation, and it's a company that both of us love because of the good work that they do, and yet sometimes it's hard for people to move past some of the challenges of history. But that's why they would bring in someone like Dr. Magee, is to really help an organization change their trajectory. And he's fabulous at that. So I have tremendous respect, and I've had the opportunity to hear him actually at our our national speaking convention, which is called Influence. And I came and heard you speak in Denver, and you had so many great things to share. Because one of the things I didn't share about your credentials, Dr. Magee, is not only do you speak to organizations, you help speakers understand how to run this business. And that's something that is a challenge in and of itself. So many people want to coach and mentor and train, but they don't understand really what it takes to run a business. And you're somebody that helps them to do that with so much experience that you have.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. Yeah, people have to realize it's a business. No matter if you are a solo practitioner, solo entrepreneur, if you have a small business or large firm, it really is a business, and understanding some of the basic business tenets, universal laws, we can call them, they apply no matter what business you're in, no matter how small or big you're in. And once you understand those, then you can start aligning resources and human capital and talent and finding people with like values and vision. And when you bring all that together, it's beyond magical what can be accomplished. But when you have competing energies and competing values, you're never going to excel to the level you are. It's one of the things I learned from Sir Richard Branson, who has written for my magazine, Performance Magazine, many times over the past 30 years. He and I have written 2 books together. Here's a gentleman that started from zero to $1 billion, 4 different $1 billion companies over the past 50 years, and each one had no connectivity to the next. But what he realized was what you just teed up, Spencer, business. I mean, how do you have clarity of business and what it takes to get there? And some people just don't get it. They think that it's just something easy that happens, and there's a lot of work to it.
Okay, so I got to jump in here. When I talk to you, I mean, I work hard. You know, Christian, we talk about being individual consultants and businesses, and you know, you just got off a 6-hour webinar that you were running for a client. But you know, for those of you who want to have the level of success that Dr. Magee has, so when do you get into the gym of business building, so to speak? At what time in the morning does your day start?
I knew that's where you were headed. You know, when I sold my last company, the third ownership I had in it, which is a very large training and development company for lawyers and CPAs, which is a $1 billion industry. And I relocated here to Las Vegas because I'm crazy. I like heat, hot, and I wanted to experience the desert. Growing up in the mountains. Your tan
looks good. I'm looking a little pasty today with my light on. You're looking sharp. Man.
The roof is always down when I go out to drive. Even if it's too cold, it's still down. I'm not gonna give in. You know, so the answer, what I realize is, again, it goes to success and team performance. You know, the theme of your program. Again, it's about values. It's about, yes, there's life balance. We can have that conversation, but it really is, are you committed to what you do? And you talk to a gold medalist that's in the Olympics, you know, Christian, your world that you spend a lot of time in, you know, what differentiates that gold medalist from someone who never makes it to the Olympics is what I call the 1% factor. We can talk a little bit about that in a minute, but it's the ability to recognize what's that 1%, not major work. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of work, but what's that 1% adjustment that the superstar is willing to make that no one else is willing to make? And that's how you become that. If you're a pro athlete, not the farm league, not, you know, playing it, you know, on the side in a pickup game, but if you're a pro athlete, that's that 1%. What do? They've got to be a super performer every time they take the field, not once in a while. And so that metaphor and that analogy will go to any business. So for me, when I moved to Vegas, I realized, wait a minute, this is Pacific time zone. If there's a lot of business opportunity on the East Coast, then 8 a.m. on the East Coast is 5 a.m. on the Pacific Coast. And if there's a lot of business opportunities in Central and Mountain and Pacific time, and if we go to Alaska and Hawaii, 5 o'clock for us in Pacific is still basically 4-ish for them in Hawaii and in Alaska. So if you think about it, you could literally work, if you're in a Pacific time zone, I don't know if I reversed it if I'm on the East Coast, you could literally work easily a 10 to 12 hour day. And there's someone you could truly be connecting with just in North America to do business. And we haven't even talked about the opportunities globally. So for me, typically my first Zoom call in the morning or phone call in the morning or webinar or meeting, if it's back in the old days of 10 months ago when you could see somebody, meeting face to face, usually my first meeting is around 5 to 6 in the morning. And again, my last business call may be at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, but if you do the math, I've already put in a 10-hour day basically, or I could go till 5 or 6 in the evening. So the gym of the business world for me starts at 6 a.m. because most people in the Pacific time zone start around 9 o'clock, truth be told. Again, keep in mind, Gallup organization says 56% of Americans are complacent and lazy. 15% of Americans are worthlessly pathetic, and only 29% work. So if I use that math, which is tough love for people, there's your clue. So I got a 30 to 40% margin on my entire competition every day.
So because Christian, we talk about your schedule. I want you to talk about your time zones in India and China and Japan. But, think about that for a second. So many people want to go out and do what you do. Less than 17% of all speakers have the CSP certification that you have, which puts you in this class of someone that you don't take anything for granted, even though you've been doing this for 27 years. I think it's been, is that long? Did I get the time right?
31, 27, it's close. 31 years, isn't that amazing?
31 years. And the wonderful thing is though, that you get to choose, even though you have those days, you get to choose how hard you work and who you work with and what clients you work with. And that's the control and the power that you have. You get to choose whether you come on our show or not, and what clients you take their calls and you don't.
It really is. It's all about choices. And again, people a lot of times don't recognize the implications or ramifications to the decisions they make, where it's going to put you. Again, you're flying on an airplane, good times, bad times, doesn't matter. Again, if you're flying on a plane and you sit down, you choose to either engage or not engage a person next to you. And then if you choose to engage them, you choose to engage them in stupid chit chat. Hi, how you doing? Where are you going? Or you choose to engage them with something more meaningful. So yeah, I still may want to engage, but if Spencer sits down next to me and say, how are you doing? Where are you headed today? Then it gives me a better question. Or are you headed home or heading to work? That gives me a better question. I could go somewhere with that versus just how are you doing? Because you never know who you're sitting down next to. Everyone has greatness within them, but if you don't give someone a better question to answer, you have no clue. I have met, politicians, military leaders, pro athletes, musicians, entertainers that sit down next to me that I know I should know them, but I'm not connecting with them that fast. So ask a better question, and it's amazing who you sit down next to. Same thing in an organization. Most leaders in organizations, and here's another kind of a differentiator. Most leaders can write the resumes of the people on their team. Managers cannot write the resumes. So the differentiator there is, do I get to know Spencer, know that you have kids and you have grandkids and where you are? That means I could write your resume. Do I know your past life, the other jobs you've had, where you've lived? That's the resume. The more you know about people, the better you can connect and the better you can integrate people together. Thus, leaders can write resumes. The manager mentality doesn't, because you don't look at people as assets. You don't look at people in terms of how do I best leverage human capital. You look at people as just simply a mere resource. It's like brick, mortar, money in the bank, and more widgets on the shelf, as they say. So again, it's about how you engage people and give people opportunities to showcase their greatness. It becomes a recruiting tool to your organization, becomes a retention tool. You'll keep great people, because every research model for decades I've ever read talks about why people leave a job. Money is never the first 1 or 2 or 3 reasons why they leave a job. Money's never the first 1 or 2 or 3 reasons why someone takes a job. Money's always on the list. But the first couple of reasons why I leave and the first couple of reasons why I come are usually always the same answers about engagement, appreciation, involvement, getting along with people, feeling valued. My time and energy is worth something. So
that means they're leaving you and me, not the organization.
Exactly right. Oh, and that's dangerous. Oh, it's never about me. It's always someone else that's at fault. The hypocrisy on this planet runneth over. And if anyone has ever stuck with what hypocrisy looks like, as a former award-winning journalist who walked away from that industry in 1989, just turn on any major news network and you'll see what hypocrisy looks like. It's always the finger pointing game, tossing everyone else under the bus, but no one's willing to look in the mirror and take ownership.
All right, there's a lot to unpack there, Dr. Magee, a lot to unpack there. And we could probably go anywhere in any one of 12 different directions and probably talk for 7 or 8 hours easy and not even scratch the surface of the knowledge that you've got there. But there's, you mentioned the Olympic thing, so I have to come back to that. So my question to you is this, and I'll ask the question with an example. So the example is one of the people that I work with in the International Olympic Committee is a former world champion rower. Now, he got into rowing. He made a conscious decision to get into rowing because of his physical stature. He realized, well, I'm not cut out for basketball, really not cut out for gymnastics, because you need certain body types, right, to perform in some of these things. But he looked at rowing and said, there's a sport I can excel in because I know I can work harder than anybody, which he did. He actually does not have the ideal build for rowers, because rowers will probably be, on average, like 6'3", 6'4", and he's just a bit under 6 feet and stocky. But he has a tremendous work ethic. I mean, he just said, you know what, I'm going to work 10 hours, 12 hours a day. I'm just going to work out all the time. And that's what he did. And he ended up succeeding. He became a world champion rower for Team Canada. He's a Canadian. And now he works for the International Olympic Committee. And so with all that background, I now ask my question. How do you know whether you just simply aren't cut out for something, you don't have the right type, versus, you know what, this is something I can do and I can bust my tail and I'm going to achieve it? Because there's some things that maybe you work really hard, you're just never going to get there because of whatever reason.
Great question. So for our viewers and listeners, I would love to say I actually fed that question to Christian and this was a setup. It was not. The question,
so far, nothing we've talked about is
this goes right to my wheelhouse, which also is an answer to Christian's question for all of us. How you know, there actually are some very finite ways to know what you're best suited for, or there are some very finite ways to figure out what the stepping stones are to get to whatever that goal is. And when you know those, just as this interplay that Christian and I are doing for all of the viewers right now, that's when you know it's time to show up and share, or when it's time to shut up and sit down. So as a performance psychologist, what I started studying long before I ever knew that I could become a psychologist, anyone who's ever had an older brother or sister quickly recognized as a child that if Christian's my younger brother and Spencer's my older brother and Spencer does something and gets away with it, or my younger brother Christian does something and gets away with it, then I behaviorally know exactly what to do, more likely to get away with something. Now, if Christian and I are watching Spencer, the older brother, do something and he gets in trouble because he got caught, then Christian and I very quickly realize, okay, that was done, brother. You should have done it this way. We make an adjustment behaviorally to try to do it differently so we don't get in trouble. Add 30 years, that's the adult in the business conversation. What works and what doesn't. So the first way you start to get clues is you benchmark off of someone, somewhere, somehow. So there's a formula that I actually have created called the Player Capability Index Model. And I'll share that formula with Christian and Spencer as a diagram, and you can post it to the website for those of you that watch this podcast, and you can even have it. We'll gift it to you. But the Player Capability Index Model is a formula I use if we're trying to update or write job descriptions, or if we're looking to retool performance reviews or assessments. If we're looking to coach people on how to have better real-time ongoing performance conversations, if we're looking to interview more effectively, if we're looking to do career pathway of someone and help them to see the different opportunities in an organization, this formula works for all of those. If you're a parent and you have a child that's 8 or 9 and says, Dad, Mom, I would like to be X when I grow up. Well, as a parent, you start making educated guesstimates. So, okay, if my child wants to be a pilot and they're 8 years of age, these might be the sorts of things they need to be better at or excel in. So all of that is what all of us know to do anyway. But what I did is I put pencil to it. So the formula, and I won't go through all of it now because it's hard to do on this podcast, but I will answer it. So how do you know what someone's good at doing? That's the output of the formula. So in this diagram and formula, the last letter is R for results. Results is the output. What I recognize is there actually is a way to answer number one, am I good at doing that output, that job, that endeavor? A client calls you and says, hey, Spencer, can you work with my group on XYZ? Well, that's the output to the formula. So how you can grow yourself, develop yourself. And if you're listening, everybody, Christian actually gave you some of the answers with this person from Canada. So in the formula, there's parentheses. And I tell people the letters inside the parentheses is the operational DNA of a human being. And this is exactly how you can finite answer what you're going to be successful at and what you're going to suck at, to be real blunt. So the first letter is letter T. So it's T plus A plus P plus E plus C, if you want to write the formula out. And that's only part of the formula, but I'm just going to give you that answer because this is really important to how do you build teams and have winning outcomes individually or collectively. So T, A, P, E, C, each letter has a plus sign in between. So T stands for training. So any way you look at knowledge gain in my formula is letter T. So training could be formal or informal education, could be technical, non-technical, could be certification, non-certification driven. So that's part of the answer. So to be a rower, to be a basketball player, to be an astronaut, to be a fireman, any of those doesn't matter. There's going to be a T component. What's the level of training, acumen, knowledge gain you have to possess to get there? In high school, my teachers were very sharp. They quickly realized Jeff Magee cannot add 1 + 1 and get the right number. You're going to drive all the math teachers crazy. So you might want to take the English classes or the social study classes. So they're pushing me in that trajectory, basically. So I did AP honors English and history, and I was on the yearbook staff and the journalism staff, and because that was where I was going to excel. So your element of being a rower versus a gymnast. So first is the letter T. So now this individual had the dogged work ethic to do what it needed to do to get there. Well, let's put that as an overlay to letter T. Some people don't want to get the knowledge, but they want to have that job. Wrong answer. There's a reason for the knowledge. You're not willing to go to school, learn how to be a medical doctor. I really don't want to see you in an operating room when my eyeball open up. So again, those sort of elements. If I want my CPA to be a CPA, I don't want just a bookkeeper. So that's going to be lots of letter T's, education, certification. A is attitude. Attitude is where work ethic comes into the conversation that you asked, Christian. So again, I may have all the knowledge in the world. And a lot of us think of my formula. First letter is T for training. Second letter is A for attitude. Third letter is letter P for performance. But just look at the first two. We've all known someone who had tremendous depth of knowledge. That's T training. And a world-class crappy attitude. And if you've ever been around someone like that, they don't pee very effectively. They don't even like to pee, perform. They want someone else to do all the peeing for them. You have to have a little fun with the math here. But conversely, we've also learned people, which could be your rower, could be the three of us, could be one of our viewers today, that has the right attitude, the work ethic. I'm willing to bust my butt. I'm willing to do the extra. They may not be the smartest guy in a room right now. So they may have tremendous A and they may lack a lot of the T, but at least they try to P everywhere, don't they? That put me in, coach, let me try. And so what we even know, so again, just like with this podcast, my magazine, Professional Performance Magazine, for 30 years, I mean, I've interviewed the last 5 presidents of the United States have written for me, last 4 first ladies, world leaders, celebrities, pro athletes, business people. American Indian heritage is a fascination of mine. I always have a tribal Indian chief write in an issue. I work with the National Guards across the 54 states and territories. So I typically have an adjutant general that either will write for me or that I'll interview. Spencer, you're in Utah right now, and the current adjutant general for your state's Army and Air National Guard has written for my magazine in the last issue. Phenomenal article. We did a Q&A is what we did. Phenomenal answers. But all that comes back to letter P for performance. That again, you have to have the right attitude, work ethic, dedication. Your question of me, work ethic. I realize that if I want to be successful, it's not a right, wrong. It's not really a choice of do I want to do it or do I want to whine about it. My God, 6 a.m. might be a little bit early for me here, but no one else is working at 6 a.m. in Pacific. And no one else is working pretty much in Mountain because it's 7 o'clock. And no one's really working in America at 8 o'clock in Central. And hell, for the most part, no one's even working on the East Coast at 9 o'clock. Most Americans only work about 3 hours a day, truth be told. Back to my model. T is training, A is attitude, P is performance. So when Christian, you ask the question, how do you really decide what you're really suited for? It starts with what do I want to accomplish? There's your output. Then back up and ask yourself, what's the knowledge one needs to possess to do that? And do I have it? Yes or no? Am I willing to get it? Yes or no? Because there's part of your answer. Am I willing to do the work it takes to get there? That's attitude questions. And then performance, am I willing to invest the time or take the time it takes to get there? Some jobs And there's always exceptions to any rule and statement, but some jobs, literally, you have to spend time to understand how to do this role before you really understand the next, before you understand the next, to make you suited to be in some of these other roles. And some people, they want the, the old traditional corner office. They want it yesterday. They don't want to spend 30 years to get there. So yeah, maybe we don't need to spend 30 years to get to the corner office, but putting someone there just because their birthright and their daddy or mom owns a company is the fastest way to blow up a family-owned business. And I've been there for 30 years also. So 3 of those. Then you can add experiences. What are your experiences? Again, if you've ever been in the military, then typically one of the common threads of anyone in the military, regardless if you're the Marines, the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, if you've been in the military, typically you have good work ethic. Work ethic is part of an experience. It's part of an attitude. So again, your experiences. Did you live in a large family, small family, rural America, city America, dirt poor or filthy rich? Doesn't matter. Those are experiences, gives you clues. And the more you know about someone's experiences, you'll know how they're going to impact where they're trying to go and how they influence others. And the last is C, is culture. Inside those letters, the culture of how you were raised, whether you're Catholic or Mormon or Baptist, doesn't make any difference, but that's simply an example of maybe an overlay of how you've been conditioned to think and operate. Are you Republican, Democrat, or independent? Again, doesn't matter, but it gives you a cultural clue as to how someone may be conditioned to operate. So Christian, you asked a powerful question. And so I actually have created a formula that speaks to that. So if I want to grow someone, mentor someone, the formula gives me a blueprint. If I want to grow myself, it gives me a blueprint. And if I want to build a winning team, it tells me all of the pieces of the puzzle. And this map gives you the clarity to see what they must look like to be successful.
It's really interesting. I teach really hiring managers. We use job models where we create this ideal personality profile that has, if you're going to be that CPA, you're probably somebody that likes analysis and maybe be in the back room. You're not necessarily in the front desk where all the people are coming in, because that drains your energy. But I have seen people with that personality succeed in a job that requires a lot of analysis because they have some of these elements you talked about. So you cannot just use a profile and say, well, this is, first of all, that's discrimination, right? Because Jeff has a profile that is, anti-math. You'll never be a mathematician. But if you really wanted to, but if you really wanted to, you could, you may be weak in one of these areas and you could really push hard. Like you didn't have the body type like Christian talked about, but you made up for it in everything else. And so there's so many examples of people that have, if you look at the Moneyball formula, they took people that were not the star athletes, that didn't have the body types that like we're talking about here, but they had something else. And it's a lot of these things that you just talked about right here.
And that's a great example. So again, if you're not always feeding your mind multiple different stimulation, reading of books, watching of videos, different elements on YouTube, different magazines, different networking groups, different podcasts. This should always be one you listen to. Different people giving you ideas, then you're never going to really recognize your true success. And Moneyball is another great movie for any of our visitors here that are not familiar with it. Add it to your watch list. Again, some great models that come out of it. I mean, again, how do you build a winning baseball team? Find, train, place. Pretty simple model. Right. Find the right people with some of the things we just talked about here. And Christian, your question, train them to be best at where you need to place them, and then place them and let them grow from there. Other elements. Sometimes it's not that you have the money or the ability or the resources that you would want for a winning team, but wait a minute, I can still be a winning team if I bring the right ingredients together. And so another example of that is every year in sports, high school, college pros, you typically hear this at the high school, college level, where someone talks about this team at the end of the year that just really excelled and maybe won everything, and they call it the Cinderella team. I always laugh under my breath because there's no such thing as a Cinderella team. You're calling the Cinderella team because you were too stupid to figure out the formula at the beginning of the season that the coach realized, which is back to Spence, what you said. If I have to have a winning team, I don't have one or two great players to build around. Back up. What's the disciplines? What's the functionality? What's the work product? What's the output that we need to collectively come together to be able to do? And how do I put collectively the right people in the right place at the right time? And if we just stay focused and stay humble, we can kick everyone's butt because everyone's going to undervalue us and underthink who we are. But we, in essence, are a successful team as a team, hence part of the mantra of your podcast.
Culture
and successful team because of one player.
That's right. And they create a culture that people are you get some of the bigger name schools or teams, and they just assume because they have these blue chip talents that they are expected to win, and they themselves think we're going to win just because we show up, when they maybe have not been putting in the work and the effort and having the attitude and the training that their team that was hungrier and wanted it more had. And Christian, I'm talking, you have so many examples because he works with so many sports people. I'll shut up now, man.
It made me think something here when you were talking, Dr. Magee. I like to get into the sports, and it's nice to have kind of a sports flavored podcast here. Over the weekend, we just witnessed the playoffs, I guess you would call them, of the National Football League. And the Kansas City Chiefs were playing with their backup quarterback,
Henne,
with Chad Henne. And I was watching this telecast, and Tony Romo on a fourth down is saying there's no way they're going to go for it. They're not going to run the play. They're just going to fake or not hike the ball. They're just going to try to draw the other team off sides. They decided to run the play. They got the first down, which allowed them to run out the clock, and the game is over. And he's yelling on the telecast, "I can't believe that they did this. Nobody's ever done this. This is the first time I've ever seen anybody do this." So the question I have for you is, when do you know to stick with the conventional wisdom, or when do you have enough confidence in your team that you can do the unconventional and win?
Great question. The answer is the same. If you understand your human capital, you understand the business you're in, you understand market opportunities, and you have a game plan, you don't deviate from it. Someone else may say you're deviating, but you're not. So that's part of it. And you have to believe in your people. So let me stay with the same sports metaphor, and let's back this up, everybody, because here's something I used to use in my leadership workshops for years. It's a little bit dated, so I don't necessarily go there anymore, but there's a great example. I remember going home to Colorado a couple of years ago. One of my brothers was in from Texas, and I'm in from, at that time, Oklahoma. And we're sitting down in my mom's house, and we're like, the beginning of the NFL Super Bowl game, and two teams are getting ready to play. So I won't mention New England Patriots by name. And so we're in the other room getting our chips and salsa and drinks together because, God is really good. And he gave us a couple good food groups, and chips and salsa is one of the main food groups you need. So we're getting all of our snacks together. We come in the other room, and the team that we were rooting for was already down. The other team had already scored, and we're going, oh, wait a second. I mean, it's like the first 2 seconds of the game. What's going on? So at halftime, the New England Patriots were down by more points than any team in the history of the Super Bowl. And even everyone that really loved the New England Patriots because they were favored, they were still trying to figure out some way to spin this in a positive way, even though mathematically there is no way they are ever going to come back. What was interesting is that the next day in USA Today was a picture of the head coach in the locker room with the team around him. And right over here in the background was a flip chart of their game plan for the first half. Now, they came back and they won, and everyone was stunned that they won. Now, here's the answer to Christian's question, everybody. When do you change a game plan or not? So there's 2 answers I said. Here's one of the 2 answers. What they did in the second half was they did not change their game plan. What they did was they went in the locker room, and kind of the coach, I'm not sure what he said, but it probably was something like this. Okay, we've now proven we have no effing clue what we're doing. You now have statistically proven that you all think we're playing powder puff soccer or basketball or something. This is the NFL, boys, and you now have proven you suck. Here's the game plan that we know will work. The reality is, look at the chart. None of you are doing what's right here. We don't need a new game plan. We don't need a new game plan.
We need to execute. Right.
And that's what they did when they came back. And almost everyone that talked about that Super Bowl, the one thing that I found interesting from a business management leadership perspective, no one said what we just said right here. They were talking about it from all these 9,000 other directions. They missed the plan. So one, you have to have the confidence. If you've got the winning game plan, you don't let the situation stress you. You don't let emotion kick in. You don't get scared and let anxiety cause you something stupid. So the first answer, if you know you've got a winning game plan, Spencer hit it. It's execution. Go back and visit. Are we really executing it? Now, the second answer to do we do something that's against conventional wisdom? Wait a minute. It's not against conventional wisdom. It's against their wisdom. That's the difference between successful people in the market space. See, in business, we talk about market share and I call market opportunity. Market share is what everyone that's in your space is doing, and what piece of it do you get? Successful people, they understand and own that, but successful people step outside and look at where's the market opportunity. See, it was unconventional to the person watching because it was outside of their wheelhouse, but the person in the game was saying, wait a second, this is another opportunity we have. It's not stupid. Looking at the playing field, looking at the players, looking at the psychology, looking at us, I have multiple options, and this is the play. You know what? We know how to do this. Everyone knows how to do this. Everyone knows where to go. Let's do it. Boom. And that's why they did it, exceeded, and won.
You just brought in the idea of Clayton Christensen's whole disrupting your whole industry. And that's, it's going against the conventional wisdom. His whole idea was figure out what it is that's going to happen in the future to your industry and do it now. Disrupt yourself is what he would actually talk to people. And that's kind of changing the game plan before the game plan changes on you. So that's brilliant. And I think you really brought that in. Can I, none of what we talked about so far, Dr. Magee, has anything to do with what we kind of prepped on.
I'm sorry.
It's brilliant. It just shows your brilliance. But I want you to bring in something that we talked about originally, and that's alignment, because I think about, your stories with the New England Patriots, and that would not have happened if they were not aligned as a team conceptually around their coaches' philosophy and all of that. Will you talk about how, just talk about your approach to alignment and why that's so important to teams and organizations?
Critically important, especially, again, people will be watching this podcast hopefully for many years into the future. So to kind of date when we're recording this one, and one of the answers to Spencer's question is the word evergreen. Evergreen means an idea withstands time. Evergreen means what you're talking about will withstand time. And that's how I try to always think when I answer my clients' questions and even my own business modeling, questions and life decisions. So I try to look at it from an evergreen standpoint, because then it gets me more runway space, as they say, down the road. So in that, there's a concept I use called trajectory code. So to answer how you figure out alignment and get people in alignment, let me back up a second. So a couple of years ago, I was asked by John Wiley, one of the world's largest trade book publishers, to write a book that talks about just personal life success. And I've never really played in that space. All my books around leadership and sales. I've written 4 graduate management textbooks that have been global bestsellers for me. So I wrote this book, Your Trajectory Code, which did phenomenally well, as well for John Wiley. It was a bestseller. And in that book, I took a tool that I've been using forever in business called the Trajectory Code Model, and I personalized it. And here's the easiest way for me to help all of us, whether this is you at home personally, or you with an association or a community group you're a part of, or you at work at your own level with you and your peers, or you and your team or department, or as a business leader in your organization or a business owner. You can use this at any level. So the trajectory code model, let me set it up this way. So imagine I have a thumbtack on my wall back here, and I take 2 threads, different colors, doesn't matter what color, and I just have 2 threads tacked and they're straight down to the floor. If I take one tack and I kind of pull it up and I tack it up here, and we'll call this letter B. So the tack here with the 2 threads is A, and I put another tack up here, B. So I pull one thread this way, and I take the other thread and I tack it up here, call that C. It's like an A, B, C. Where those 2 threads start down here at A, there'll be a little bit of space where those 2 threads are first coming up from the thumbtack, where it will look like those 2 threads are one on top of each other before they start to spread apart. Does that make sense? That's critically important to understanding Christian's statement about that Olympic rower, or any Olympic gold medalist, or any person who decides to be a plumber versus a pilot. The difference at the very beginning, where they both leave A and go up, I put a little circle in the book Trajectory Code when I'm talking about the Trajectory Code V model. And that space right there is what I call the 1% factor. People are successful because they realize if they're going on the wrong trajectory, where those two threads are on top of each other. It's only a 1% recalibration to get back over to the success trajectory. But the longer you wait takes more work. So now let's go back to this V diagram for everybody. So A stands for activating event. Psychology works off of about 5 basic models, and one's called the ABC model of human behavior. I simply have taken the ABC model of human behavior and I have businessized it. So A is the starting point, activating event. And then you have B. B is for behavior, and that's a finite line. So if you're on A, B trajectory, it's a finite line. And another word I could put up here at the top of this finite line is failure. Failure in essence, because you're not going to be able to get to your destination. A to C, I'll put a label on top of this C and call that success, and then continue that line out into infinity. So AC goes out to infinity and represents success. AB represents failure. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so with that model, I now can answer a zillion questions. So if I can get everyone aligned in that 1% zone faster, we can all accelerate towards C and have greater successes. So how do I get people aligned? Is there some other words up here for success at letter C? Or other words for C, we call C consequence. Other words for C would be goals. What's Spencer's goals? What's Christian goals? And if I can find a way to find similarity and connectivity between your two goals, I increase the ability to get you two guys aligned so you're working together from point A to point C. So some of the words for C would be goals, values. What are your values are important? So I tell people, if you're going to go to work for an organization, look at their website, see what their company values are. Can you live with those? Are those somewhat similar to your values? Read on LinkedIn the profile of the CEO or the senior leadership team. What's their mission statement? What's their vision statement? What are their values? See, values, vision, and mission statement could all be the data, the key performance indicators you could write down on the AC trajectory. So then you come back, and anytime you step in to engage someone, think of the ABC model. Think of the V diagram. If I'm going to engage Spencer right now, we're both at point A. How do I know if I'm in alignment with him? Well, what are your values? What's important to you? Where are you trying to go? And if those are consistent with me, I can connect with you and we can be a lot more successful. But a lot of times we don't realize that we're not congruent with the other person until you're like halfway up. Well, you still might be able to get over here, but that may take some energy. But most people, they don't realize that they're being stubborn and going in the wrong direction until they run into that AB, that dead end wall. It takes a ton of energy to create the change you get from B to letter C. So you align by having common values. You align by having common vision. You align by having common experiences. I have some friends, you two gentlemen probably do as well, that are federal politicians, senators, congressmen. I've had the opportunity to meet the last 3 presidents. Doesn't matter if you like them or not. What I've recognized is the reason that politics is so ugly today is because no one really on either side of the line has a reason to be connected. See, up until around 2000, no matter if you're Republican, independent, socialist, Democrat, whatever you were, you moved to DC for half of the year because you actually worked back there 4 or 5 days every week. And you had kids, so you went to some of the same churches, your kids all went to the same schools, you all broke bread together. Kind of hard to be completely rude and disrespectful to someone you're interacting with. Today, you go back there, your kids don't come back. You don't go to the same churches with people on the other side of the aisle, as they say. Your kids aren't in school with someone on the other side of the aisle. You share an apartment with 3 other people with the same political views. So that's why you become so ingrained that you aren't aligned. And everyone forgot the first word in the Constitution is our country's mission statement, which says we, not you, not me, we. If you're not one of us, shut up, get at the back of the line. You are one of us, come to the front line, let's talk. See, that's the simplicity of how you can bring people together. You have to have common alignment. I gave you a whole lot of answers there.
I just want to say mic drop, you know.
Yeah, that's right. He's got the mic on his lapel. It's right there, man.
It's like, boom. Okay. We're
Thank
good.
you, sir.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. You know, we could keep going. You know, one of the things I forgot to mention is you have this leadership academy. You know, I go on your website and you've got all kinds of, you've got sales mastery. People can come and really learn a lot of your leadership principles just from the tools that you have out there, the books, the webinars, the series, the mastery series that you have. If people want to learn more about the work that you do, how can they find you?
Thank you. Great question. So there's two businesses that I'm a part of. So for my talent development side, it's my name, jeffreymagee.com. And on there, you can learn about the leadership work we do with organizations through the Leadership Academy of Excellence. It's where we go in and work with an organization, roll up the sleeves, we're with you for an entire year. If it's about revenue generation, then sales mastery, we have a series of 6 programs there. We can come in and work with you. We have virtual, we have an LMS platform. We have podcasts, we have magazines, articles, a lot of resources on that side as well. Now, the magazine side, my media company is Professional Performance Magazine. Professional Performance Magazine is 30 years of age this year. And what we've done on a quarterly basis is we go out to phenomenal cross-section of personalities that would be deemed to be super achievers in their space. And we ask of them to share via our platform an article, 500 to 1,000 words on success that's evergreen in nature. And so we have kind of a formula. We always have a federal politician. We always have someone from the religious, evangelical, Christian sort of that space. Have an Indian tribal chief. We always have a military general. We always have a Fortune 100 corporation C-suite executive. We have a New York Times sort of best-selling author, cross-section of people. So that really the articles appeal to everybody. It's not just one section. We don't just have a theme. If there were a theme, it's about performance and achievement. So those are the 2 places. And again, for our viewers here today, if you go to either of those 2 and you sign up for Performance Magazine, we'll give you a free digital quarterly subscription as being a viewer of your podcast. If they want to buy hard copies, they're welcome to do that as well. So that would be all the different ways we can keep growing, the energy that your viewers bring to the table as well. Because again, 29% of America are the super achievers. And so we need to really step it up so we can get others to be on our team.
I think Christian, that Dr. Magee walks the talk. When we talk, he and I have had some conversations, and and he's in the trenches, and he is doing everything that he's teaching people how to do. He's doing it because he's experienced it with all of the years of experience and seeing the challenges in corporate America and helping them fix those problems. And I've just had the privilege of seeing you firsthand. And I know maybe I cut that short. Christian, is there anything else that put you on the spot that you would like to know? Because you don't get to see him with that mic in his hand as often as I have, man.
Too kind. Thank you, guys.
Well, it's been an absolute honor to meet you virtually, Dr. Magee. I really appreciate that. And Spencer, it's always a pleasure to do the podcast with you. If people want to learn more about how you might be able to help them, how can they reach out and contact you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Reach out to me on our website, Altium Leadership. That's ALTIUM Leadership. And you can chat me there or email me at spencer@altiumleadership.com.
All right. Thank you so much, Spencer. And people can find me at my website, gp4.com. That's gpfour.com, or on LinkedIn. You can just look up Christian Napier, or you can email me at cnapier@gp4.com. So Dr. Magee, Spencer, again, it was an honor to have you with us today. Thank you so much. Listeners, please like and subscribe to our podcast, and we'll catch you again soon. Thank you so much.